All right, so we're up to Bal Derech Zeh here in Oistes. Bal Derech Zeh. So we're talking about the advantage of Ilui, of Tefillah. Tefillah is a halaw. It becomes a total bittul. He talks about it becomes actually bittul b'metzias, that the person loses his entire self. That's with the regular korban, but the Rebbe brings down now in Avodas Hashem that the davening is the time in which a person elevates and his soul becomes included, it becomes bottled from its mitzias and becomes included in the Ein Sof. ועל דרך זהו בעבודת הקורבנות שבנפש האדם. Similarly to what we talked about the physical korban, that it's burnt and elevated and that it loses its mitzias. So similar to the avodas hakorbanos is in the avodas hakorbanos shebenefesh ha'odom, in the service of the korbanos which the person practices, which is in his soul. As we say, Odom ki yakriv mikem, that, as quoted earlier, that the person that brings the korban is mikem. It comes from you. You yourself become the korban. There too is the aliyah. The yerid asanishama lemato he litzoydech aliyah. The soul descended below for the purpose of an elevation. Sheyiya inyan ha'alo milmato lemailo, that there should be the idea of elevation from below to above. The neshama came down below so that it can elevate it later on from below to above. Lotzeis mimitzi uso v'lihikolel ba'orin sof, to go out from its existence and to be included in the infinite light, the Ein Sof. Ba'aliyah shelo, when is the time that the soul is elevated, leaves its mitzias and is elevated in Ein Sof? He batefila is in the davening, and the davening corresponds to the korbanos. The tefillah same, the tefillah is connected. Korbanos tiknum. The tefillah correspond to the korbanos. So just like the korban avoda literally was the avoda of aliyah, the same thing is in the neshama. During the time of tefillah, the person is elevated, and the neshama goes up above. And this fits with the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that a person technically, after he finishes davening, he should expire, he should no longer exist. Because why? Because we say that the davening is the time for the elevation, that he goes up. So he should not really exist anymore. The Eibishter's kindness that he continues to exist. Uketoid as Baal Shem Tov, as the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, the Zeh Odom Chai Achar HaTfilah, fact that a person remains alive after he davened. Ein Zeh Al Piteva, that's not by nature. By nature, the person should not be alive after davening. Why? Ki mitzad hakavonis hagedolis shebitefilo, because of the great intentions, the kavonis that the person experiences when he davens. Hoyetzorich liyes etzloi klois hanefesh. So by him, there should be the expiration of the soul should be by the person. Zeh sheni sharchai acharat tefillah. The fact that the person remains alive after the davening, ein zal pitava, that's not by nature. It's elochesed godel mashem yisborach. This is a great kindness of the Eibishter, blessed be He. For a yid to remain existing after davening is not natural. because the davening should have experienced an elevation to Hashem and should no longer exist. The Eibishter gives you a great kindness and you continue to exist. So the Rebbe said we can say, the mitzad hakavones hagdoyle shebitefila magim al pitevel liklois hanefesh. The Baal Shem Tov says that because of the intentions of the great kavona, the great ideas that the person experiences, naturally you reach the level of klois hanefesh who ki tefila hu inyan ha'alo lotzis mimitzuusei v'likolel b'odin sof, because that is what davening is. Davening is the idea of elevation to leave your mitzias, leave your existence, and to be included v'likolel b'odin sof in the Ein Sof, which is bedugmas. This is similar to the physical hakorban shahoyon nisraf, that it was burnt, v'nichlal be'eish shalamaylo, and it was included in the fire of above. That's what davening is all about. So that's why the Baal Shem Tov says, naturally, after you daven, you experience such a halo, you should expire from your mitzias, similar to a korban that was burnt, and you're above, and you're no longer in this world. The Eibishter, B'chaz de Agodl, continues to sustain us. V'zehu she'omru Razal. This also fits with what our sages of blessed memory said. They said, "Ein oimdim lihispalel elo mitoch koved rosh." Because we are experiencing an elevation that we're losing our metzias, our sages tell us that you don't start to daven. Only koved rosh, the heaviness of the head. What does it mean, koved rosh? What does it mean, the heaviness of the head? Well, Pirish, Rashi explained the meaning of koved rosh, hachno v'shiflus, to be subdued and a sense of lowness, feeling that low. Why is that? Because that's losing your mitzias. Not being a mitzias is by being bachno v'shiflus. The kivon she'inyan ha'tefilahu. Since the idea of davening is she'yoytze mimitzius, that he leaves his existence, v'nichlal be'oir Ein Sof, and he's included in the light of the Ein Sof, which is bittul. That's davening is bittul, is you losing your mitzias and being included in Ein Sof. Lochein gam ha'achone litfila. That's why also the preparation for davening, iachno v'shiflus, is also the level of achno v'shiflus, level of bittul. But the Rebbe brings down there is a difference between the preparation, the bittul that comes before the davening, and the bittul that takes place during the davening. The bittul during the davening is a bittul because you feel close to Hashem and you expire from your mitzias. The bittul that is before the davening is a bittul for being far from godliness. And that's why it brings you to wanting to be close to the God, to Hashem. Elo, see this place. Shabitl the tefillah, the subjugation that the person has by davening, hu mitzad hakiruv lelakus. That is because of his closeness to godliness, to God. Shenirgash boy ha'ilui v'ha'haflo the sof. He feels, the person by him is felt the advantage and how awesome Ein Sof is, and that's why he wants to be included, because he feels the great advantage of godliness, so he wants to be included there. That's the feeling that you have in davening, that you want to be included in that greatness. V'habitl shalifnei atfila, but the subjugation before the davening, hu shemismarmer al richuka melokus, is that you are bitter for your distance from godliness. V'lochein, and therefore, habitl the tefillah, who bitl the chlois hanefesh, the bitl of the davening, because it's the closeness of Hashem. It's a bitl of expiration of the soul. Shehu nichlal belakus, he's included in godliness, and therefore, Shem Tov said before, he should not be a mitzvah, shouldn't exist after davening, if not for the kindness of Hashem. But v'habitl shekoidem hatfilo achno v'shiflus, but the bitl that precedes the davening, ein emdim lispalem tuchkeved reish, the precedes davening hu achno v'shliflus, is to be subdued and feel yourself low, because that comes because of feeling of your distance for Hashem brings you to humility, brings you to being subdued. The Mittler Rebbe in the Maimer, Dibur Hamaschil, Achere Havaya Lekechem Telechu, the Maimer which begins, you should follow Hashem. V'chein, and the same thing is also Mevayer HaTzamach Tzedek. The Tzamach Tzedek explains, B'mamori, Dibur Hamaschil Zeh, with the Maimer that opens with this same, Achere Hashem Lekechem Telechu. V'zeh shehabitl dachno v'shiflus, who hagdom l'tfilah. Why is the subjugation of being subdued and humble is an introduction for the davening? So this fits with the saying of the sages, Kol hamashpil atzmoi hakodesh baruch hu magbihoi. Anyone who lowers themselves, is humble, the Eberster raises him up, picks him up. Since by davening you will be raised up and you'll be included in the Ein Sof, you need to first be mashpil, lower yourself and practice humility, and that's why you will be raised by Hashem. So the Rebbe said, the Masha Kosu B'Likutei Torah, that the Rebbe quoted before from the Likutei Torah, Shelahakriv Ho'oisyos Laharikiv, that the words to bring the korban is the same letters as Laharkiv Turat, Hu al derech habitl shekoidem atfilah. That is similar to the bitl that takes place before the tefillah. That's the level of laharkiv, before the davening. Because what happens is, before the item grows, before the seed has to rot first in the ground, and once it rots, it sprouts and becomes a... So in order for a person to grow in his davening, first he has to rot. Rotting means the achno v'shiflus. Because the bitl of recoven is meaning that his entity is lost. Before the davening, you lose your mitzias in the recoven. Elo, through the rot, later on it starts to grow. This is similar to the low humility that you have before the davening, to koived roish achno v'shiflus, she'al yidei zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu magbia b'tfilah. Through this, the Eibishter raises him by the davening. The Rebbe brought down before from the Alter Rebbe Likutei Torah that lahakriv is la'ashon of recovery, the level of bittul. So the Rebbe associates that's the bittul that takes place before the davening. During the davening, the bittul is that you become included. That's the closest. The bittul of recovering is before the davening. Just like before the seed can start to grow and blossom into a tree, you need to first rot. And that is the level of achno v'shiflus that is before the davening. And then when you start to daven, then you get the bittul that you get included in the Ein Sof. Yud. So how does a person become and get the feeling of humility, begin feeling of subdues, begin? How do you begin to rot? How do you lose your mitzias? So there is also two different levels uh, of meditation of a reflection. That one is by realizing your own lowness, how low you are, and how distant you are from Hashem, and that itself is a. And then there is also the uh, general idea, as we'll see, the Rebbe brings down here. The meditation that brings the person to become achno v'shiflus. Shnei Efanim, there's two ways. The bedrush hanal shel Admur HaEmtzoi, in that mimer of the Mittler Rebbe, in the mimer of Achra Hashem Lekechem Teleichu Mevuer, Obadiah explains Shebichdei Lovei Lahachno V'Shiflus, in order to be able to come to the level of being subdued and humble, Hu Al Yidei Sheyizboinen Be'oitzem Pchistusoi, is by reflecting on how great is, how low you are. Oitzem, it's the very powerful, how low you are. And how great you are distant, how far you are away from Hashem. You have to reflect on your own self to see that you are distant away from Hashem. And that the reflection needs to be with a very good accounting and a very particular accounting. Hanikra, that is called Morei de Chushbara, masters of accounting. You have to have a very honest, a very good and specific accounting of what your standing is. That means to be masters of accounting. Morei de Chushbara. V'yesh loymar, the Zesha Oimer. The Rebbe says this, that he says Shahis Bonenus Tzricha Liyas Becheshben Toivu Medugdok, that the reflection needs to be good and a very accurate cheshbon. While derech shemevayer barucha b'shara yichud, that's similar to what he explains in Shara Yichud. That diksheis boinenus b'derech klal, if you just reflect in a general way, hasagosvi ba'inyan urag b'bchinas makif, so you grasp the idea only in a surrounding way, in an encompassing way. V'gam yochel lahatis es atzma, you can also cheat yourself, because if you're not doing a good cheshbon, you can make a mistake and not really evaluate yourself properly. You only get a general picture. How could you get a true and inner reflection? That is by reflecting in a very specific way, detailed. Hello. After you do reflect on the details, you have to go back and look on the general way. So this is all one way looking at the person versus the general descent of the neshama, as we'll see. But we're talking about that when you do an accounting, it has to be accounting in the details, not just your general standing, but just to know yourself very, very specific. But after the details, you have to know the klal. V'omer sham. So he says over there in the Maimer of the Mittler Rebbe, he says, "Shekein kibel aviv admur hazokin meharav hamagid bepirush gomor." That this is what he received from the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe received from the Magid of Mizrich in the meaning of Gomor. Not sure. I think the Gomer means. I have to look the Mimer. I didn't get it quite. What does it mean completely? Maybe that's what he means fully in the meaning of Gomer, which is the trying to think if I can remember this. I got to look this up exactly what means Pirush Gomer. V'yesh loymar. And the Rebbe says the Zeh she'omer shehahizboinenus tzricha liyis becheshben toif umedugdok. This that he says that the reflection needs to be with a good accounting and a particular ushehizboinen behaprotim. That means that he should look into the details. The noisef lozeh shacheshben bechlal ucheshben dahaprotim. That in addition, what does it mean? A good and particular cheshbon, that means that you should reflect on the details. That in addition, that generally the cheshbon is a cheshbon of the details. A particular and accurate counting is that you are particular in every detail. There's one thing that the general idea comes from all the details. But the idea that he says cheshbon toivim madugduk means that each of the details needs to be in a particular, very specific way. So this is one way of reflecting is making a good accounting about who you are, who you're standing, and what you're doing, and look in the details. And in the general, and after the details, you look at yourself, how are you in general? But the details need to be done in a very specific way to get the real, full, complete picture of where you're standing. And that's one level of brings you lachno v'shiflos. But bedrush anal the tzamach tzedek. The tzamach tzedek also has a maimer achre avaya lekechem, as the Rebbe said before, moisif. Of there he adds the inyan moridu chushbeno, that what is the meaning of being masters of accounting, who al derech maimer azal ala posuk. This is similar to the saying of our sages on the word boyu cheshben. So it says, boyu cheshben, come to cheshben. So this is a pasuk in Chukas Chof Aleph, pasuk Chof Zayin. So what does it mean, boyu cheshben? So our sages of blessed memory teaches that boyu v'nachshuv cheshbenu shalolam. Come and let's consider the accounting of the world, which means let's make a cheshbon. Why are we here for? The first cheshbon is on your personal status, where you're standing. Here, let's figure out the world. Why is this a world? Why are we here all together? Ha-cheshbon, that would be the accounting, the tachlis hayirida, the briyas ha'olam, v'atachlis the ridas neshmasi la'olam hazeh. It will be, what is the goal? Why did the Eibishter create the world? And what's the goal? And what's the purpose of his neshama coming down to this world? Sha'yirida hitzerech aliyah. You are figuring out that descent is for an elevation. That's the second accounting, that you take a look, what's going on? Why was the world created? Why were you created? And when you reflect that you are not really fulfilling the intention, the intent why the neshama came down, you're not fulfilling it. That will bring him to being subdued. So one will come out from his particular situation, and the other one is the general situation. Why the Eibishter created him and the world, and he's not fulfilling this purpose of creation, and that will bring him to a level of humility. What is the difference between these two approaches? According to the explanation, that the way you get that humility is because of the kovid rosh that precedes the davening ha'idei ha'his boinenus ba'otzem pchisus v'goydel richukai, that comes through his reflection in how powerful low, how awesome low he is, and how far he's distant. Why is that humility, that shiflus, that kovid rosh, a preparation for davening, a nemdim lispalo metoch kovid rosh is humipnei shal yidei habitl magim ladargas achil nailis. That is because through the bitl you reach to the highest levels. As we said, the chol hamashpil atzmaya kodesh baruch hu magbiyeh. Anyone who lowers himself, Hashem raises him. So that bitl is a preparation for his elevation. But according to the explanation, that how do you person get to the humility is by reflecting that the purpose of the descent is for an elevation, and he's not there, and that brings him to humility. This that humility is a preparation for davening. It's not just because the advantage of bittul, which will lead him later on to an elevation. Then that level, this idea, this concept of humility in of itself has a connection to davening by reflecting that the Yerida is Tzorech Aliyah. So in order the person should feel that there is a descent. So for the person to realize and feel that the purpose of the descent is for an elevation, who al yidei hahergesh the ilui v'haflos elokus. That is through the feeling of the advantage and how awesome and great is godliness. That's, you want to elevate, you want to be included. How could you feel how Hashem is great is by measuring next to yourself how low you are. The more you will appreciate the greatness of Hashem, then you will realize that you're on a pretty low level. The more you feel the advantage and the greatness of Hashem, then you will sense, feel more how low you are. Since the humility comes that he did not fulfill the purpose of the descent, which is the elevation, that comes from realization how big and how important and what the elevation is. And he feels humility because he hasn't fulfilled the intent of the descent. So then it means that in his level of humility, he feels a little bit the advantage of a lakus, because that's why he feels that level of humility, is because he has an appreciation for the greatness of Hashem, and that brings him to feeling how low he is, and because he hadn't fulfilled the kavanah where he's standing in. So that becomes already a little bit feeling of the relationship, the ilu of Elikus, in his reflection. The previous reflection is merely a bittul, which is a preparation from that humility. The Eibishter will raise you and you'll go to the higher level. But over here, in the reflection itself, is sensed already part of the higher level, because the reason he feels is the yerida that he hasn't fulfilled the kavanah is because he has a sense from the aliyah, from the greatness of, and that what makes him feel that yerida, and therefore he's feeling a little bit in that shiflos, in that koived roish, the level of elevation and ilu of elukus. Just to point out, this the Alter Rebbe writes in his Shulchan Aruch, shekoidem hatefila tzorich lachshev mereimim esokel yizbarich b'shiflus ha'odom. He says that before the davening, one needs to think about the exaltness, the greatness of the blessed Hashem, and the humility of the person, the Eshloimar. So the Rebbe says we can say these are not two separate things, Reimim Musakel and Shiflus Ha'odom. But as the Rebbe said before, that the Shiflus Ha'odom is derived from the greatness of Akel. Realizing the greatness of Reimim Musakel brings about the feeling how low he is, the Yesh Loimar. We can say, Sha'amachshove b'Shiflus Ha'odom, the thought about the low status of the person, it's not as independent matter. This is a continuation and a result from the thought in the exaltness of Hashem. That brings about the feeling of Shiflas Odom. So now we're saying that this kovid reish prepares the davening huloi rak mitzad mailas habitl. So it's not just because shiflus humility has the advantage of bitl, which Hashem raises you to a higher level. Elogam mipnei shebehakovid reish nirgash. It's because in that kovid reish, it's felt the greatness of Hashem, inyan ha'tefillah, the idea of tefillah. So what the Rebbe is explaining over here, that it's not just a preparation of humility to get you to a higher level, but in that humility, there's already from the higher level, because you're feeling a little bit of the Reimemus Hakel, the greatness of Hashem in that davening, which brings you about to that shiflus, Elo. Shebihizbonus bereimus Hakel, he benegel shiflus odom. It's directed, the focus of the greatness of Hashem is as it relates. That's why you feel so low. That's why through that reflection he is subdued and becomes humble. The davening and reflection, and the davening is talking about the sense about the greatness of Hashem Himself, and the bittul as a result of the hisbonenus in the exaltness of Hashem is lo yachno v'shiflus, is not subdued in humility elo shenichlo belokus, but rather he's included in the lokus kinal siftes, as said before siftes. So we have this bonus of the davening is concentrating on the godless hakel, and that brings you to a level to being included in godliness. Before the davening, even though it also has an appreciation for the godless Akel, Hashem's greatness, but over there it's as it relates to the person, and the person feels that he is on a low level, and the greatness of Hashem, and this brings him already later on as to the higher level of his bonus Hashem in the davening. Okay, we'll leave it over here. We'll be mamshich.
Yes, good. Thank you very much. Have a good day.